I'll tell you a story. And this I've talked about this a few times, but never on I don't think I've talked about this on a podcast. There was I grew up with this redheaded kid. It was like Canelo, the boxer.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, we have a lot of redheads down there. Like
The
Irish that betrayed the U.S. and went to join us. The French too. There was a bunch of French. Anyway, we'd skateboarded together. And we grew up on the border, so we were very Americanized. This kid skateboarded with me. Cool kid. Used to do a very high ollie. That was his whole thing. Beautiful parents. Their dad and mom still married. Sister. Great kid. Strong. Catholic. He always had a cross on him. We'd give him shit about that. I didn't see him from 16. He disappeared from my life. He just, we went separate ways. And all of a sudden I find him again outside of a gas station. I'm working. I have a Glock stuffed down my pants. I have a Nextel radio in my back pocket. And I'm pretending to not be involved with anything, walking past this gas station where there was a bunch of armed people parked. Suburbans, Tahoes and shit like that. Everybody's wearing plate armor. AKs. Not police issue. Just a bunch of random ARs and stuff like that. And I was sent there to walk through and to just see what was going on. Somebody among the crowd that was there armed whistles to me and says my name. And my fucking stomach drops to my balls. It's him. Like I turned to him and I could see his freckly fucking nose and his red hair peeking out of a little fucking hat that he had on sideways. He's wearing this chest rig with AK-47 magazines on there. He comes over and gives me a big hug, sticks some of these fucking things in my like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh man, I'm just,
just passing through.
Fuck, I give him some bullshit story about me looking for a job and just not knowing what to fucking do and shit like that. And he smiles and kind of like, he knows I'm full of shit.
How many years have passed since he was 16 and you didn't see him again?
So I was 23 back now at that time.
Wow.
He, we exchange pleasantries. We ask each other about each other's parents and shit like that. Before he goes, he says, I know what you do for a living. You should probably leave here. It's pretty dangerous for you. And I said, thank you, So I walk off. I didn't have my Nextel was going off. It's fucking vibrating. The army showed up. As soon as I got back to where I came from, the army showed up and got into a firefight with all of them. You could hear it from blocks away. The roar of these G3 rifles and AK just fucking going. Fucking kid grab my plate, put it on, grab all my shit. Everybody's fucking roll to where this was happening. By the time we got there, it was over. It was a few minutes. I spent probably 40 minutes to an hour looking for him. I couldn't find him. Like I was trying to pretend that I was like securing the area and shit like that, but I was like I was looking for my friend. He was under a car. He tried to escape under a car. The only way I recognized him was his hair because his face was gone. How can I dehumanize him or like this is the enemy? I stayed with him in his body until late into the night, and I received his parents, so they could recognize him. It's a different war down there. It's not overseas. It's not an enemy that you can't recognize. These are kids. These are fucking kids shooting at each other for what? Allegiance to a cartel? To supply the U.S. with a substance? Because they are living in a country that is rife with corruption and that has people in power that don't give a fuck about its citizenship, and allow young people like myself at that time to be dragged into this war. I mean, are the people that trained me to do what I had to do in that time any different than the people that went and trained them to do what they had to do for these cartels at one time? What's the difference there? That's just one kid that was eaten by this. This kid had a lot of potential. He's like an athlete kid, but just there's no opportunities.
Now he disappeared from your life when you were 16, and you don't know exactly what happened, but you could probably guess, correct me if I'm wrong.
He was recruited.
Right. Someone came and tapped him on the shoulder, 16-year-old kid, say, you come with us now. So here's why I say that. What choice does that kid have?
Zero. Not a lot. But what choice did I have? You know? It was either going to where this fucking newspaper told me that I was going to be a part of something special, or to finally cave into some of my friends who were driving loads across the San Ysidro border into San Diego. Saying, hey, Ed, it's easy money. All you have to do is just drive this car and leave it in this parking lot over here.
And those are your friends.
And those are my friends.
Those are your friends. Now imagine if the wrong guy came to the skate park, though, when you were 16. Not your friend.
Yeah.
Older guy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be here right now.
Probably
or you'd
not.
be down there doing this shit.
Probably not. But like I want Americans to like realize there is no safety net. There is no unemployment check. There is no social security in Mexico. There is no outreach program. There is no say no to drugs, kids. And if there is, it's a joke, you know? It is survive.
Mm-hmm.
It is figuring out how to get what you need and then leave everything out, leave everybody else to the side, you know, me first. And the level of just dehumanization that has, and normalization that has happened. Again, Americans are just learning about this Auschwitz in Jalisco. And that's the way they call it because they have no other way of calling it because all the shoes and all the people that were burned. So Auschwitz is what they come up with. This has been happening for decades down there. During the first parts of the Ukrainian conflict, Mexico had performed that war with bodies. Like there were more there were more bodies in Mexico in the first 3 days of the Ukrainian war than in Mexico than there were in the Ukrainian conflict. And somehow there's no war going on down there. You have a federal government in Mexico stating that the U.S. should do this, should do that, and all this rhetoric about that Mexico's sovereignty and all this. Meanwhile, there's a European cartel head guy in Mexico City got assassinated because he was a direct link between los Mayos and their influences in Europe. You're seeing Chinese manufactured and produced precursors and chemicals coming into Mexico through its ports, which are military manned, and nothing is happening. You get a lot of people assassinated that work those ports from the military, but nobody's asking questions like, hey, how is all this shit getting into the country? You have now a U.S. utilizing that as a threatening device to Mexico, and those tariffs are not going to affect anybody but us. The government, they're going to be fine. Those tariffs are going to affect the small companies that sell, do, and move things. That's who's going to be affected. The small people. Cartels are going to give a shit about those tariffs. And again, these organizations were created and fostered by the same governments that are now going after them. I think that's a reality that I don't think gets talked about. And again, maybe Trump wasn't responsible directly for the origin of the Zeta cartel or the origin of the Sinaloa cartel, but he's there now, and he's pointing the finger at them as a terrorist organization. And just like we pointed the finger at Al Qaeda at some point and figured out that, oh, we created Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
Or just how we pointed the finger at some of the stuff that was going on in Syria. And now we're coming to learn that a lot of these freedom fighters that were in Syria fighting were actually former Al Qaeda people that are now being paid and trained by the U.S. government to do all this shit is coming out now. I can't wait to see what other type of involvement and stuff comes out from the Mexico side of things.
From the Mexico side of things.
Yeah, the war that is going on and has been going on in Mexico and the U.S.'s direct involvement in aspects of it. Again, Fast and the Furious is just the tip of an iceberg, I think, of the U.S. basically arming a single cartel force in Mexico. The Zetas are trained by U.S. Special Operations, and they're also School of the America graduates, some of them I've heard. So there's a responsibility there. Former presidents of Mexico being CIA bankrolled people. There's definitely some sort of interaction there. Some major government officials being touted as uncorruptible and being showered with awards and accolades by federal officials in the U.S. are now in federal custody on cartel charges.
Mm-hmm. It's hard not to get cynical.
And we have El Mayo Zambada, the historical figurehead of the Sinaloa cartel, issuing a statement of warning to the Mexican federal government that if he doesn't get released and tried for his crimes in Mexico, it's going to destabilize the region after his last arrest and extradition to the United States.
Okay.
Also, although he was arrested many times and escaped from prison many times.
Seen that video.
I mean, you have El Mayo Zambada in U.S. custody.